I want to um, explain some more or just talk some more about how to find the area under a normal distribution when it's a bit more complicated of a problem. And this is a problem similar to practice problem number 3. It's a little bit different, and hopefully you'll notice that, and hopefully this will boost your understanding of the situation. In this problem, we're only worried about Crocs and McDonald's. So I'm only interested in these two columns. This 15.28% is the annual return for Crocs, the average annual return for Crocs over a period of, I don't know, 10 years or so, I think is how long I looked at. And these returns were pretty tightly clustered together. I can tell that because it's got a fairly low standard deviation. When a company has a standard deviation of returns that's lower than the mean return, I guess that's a pretty good indicator that they're fairly tightly clustered around the mean, the average. Crocs, on the other hand, has higher return than McDonald's, but it also has a much higher standard deviation. So the mean of Crocs's returns was 22.88%, but they were very varied returns. There were some really high highs and some really low lows. That's what I can tell by looking at that very high standard deviation for Crocs. The standard deviation for Crocs is more than three times the return for Crocs, whereas the standard deviation for McDonald's is actually less than the mean return for McDonald's. And I have graphed both of these. The blue distribution represents Crocs, Crocs's returns. The green distribution represents McDonald's returns. And then there's a dark blue dashed line that represents the mean return for Crocs. That is 22.88. And the light green dashed line, which is right here, represents the mean return for McDonald's, which was 14, or actually 15, 15.28. And I know those don't look pretty. I'm going to zoom in a minute to talk about the math. Well, I might be curious to know what is the likelihood of Crocs earning a return somewhere between 0% and 20%. That's this blue shaded area. Well, the likelihood of Crocs generating a return in the blue shaded area is what I'm now shading in red. And it's taken a long time and I don't want to spend that much time doing it, so it's not that pretty. But the red area is the likelihood that Crocs will earn a return between 0% and 20%. You can see that if I look at the blue distribution, most of that distribution isn't shaded red because most of that distribution falls out of the range from 0 to 20%. And I'll talk about exactly how to find the red shaded area in just a bit. And here's hoping I can figure out how to change the ink color. I'll use purple for McDonald's. I might also be interested in knowing the likelihood of McDonald's earning anywhere between 0% and 20% return. And I'm going to erase the red so it doesn't interfere. But the likelihood of McDonald's earning between 0 and 20% is the portion of this blue shaded area that falls under the green curve. And I'm just using the tools of PowerPoint and Excel to draw these lines. And so they don't look always turn out exactly the way I want. But the portion of the green shaded area, the green distribution that falls in this blue shaded area, you can see is much, that's so poorly drawn, um, is much greater than the portion of the blue shaded area that falls under the blue curve because McDonald's returns are so much more tightly clustered together. So you can see that the portion of the purple area is going to be much higher than the portion of the red area that I deleted a moment ago. So And that's because Crocs' returns are spread out all over the place, whereas McDonald's returns are tightly clustered around that mean. I mean, they're not, there's deviation about the mean, but it's a much smaller deviation about the mean than Crocs exhibited. So now I want to explain how to find what was the red shaded area and what was the purple shaded area. We'll work first with I'm going to change it back to red just to use the same colors. We'll work first with what was the red shaded area, this section. So I want to find this section, which would represent Crocs's likelihood of earning a return between 0% and 20%. The first thing we're going to have to do is solve for the z-score here and the z-score here. And then it's just a matter of, do I add things to 50%? Do I subtract things to 50%? Exactly what process do I follow after that? It depends. Whenever I look up a z-score and I go to the z-table to find a probability, on the z-table that I will provide to you, what it's telling you is, and I'm going to switch pen colors again to, oh, orange seems good. What it's telling you is the distance from this midpoint. And since right now I'm working with Crocs, Crocs is the blue curve, and I've cut most of the blue curve off because it extended way out to the left and way out to the right, and I was trying to zoom in. But when I look up a z table value, it starts from the midpoint of your curve and it goes all the way to the left to the z value that you look up, and it tells you the area under the curve from the midpoint. My pen's being weird. From the midpoint, which is for the blue curve, this blue dashed line, all the way to the left. So it would tell me this entire area. Well, I don't need that entire area for Crocs. I need a smaller area, but I can work with the idea that it tells me this entire orange area. So let's start figuring it out. And remember, this number right here is 20. And I had just made that number up. I said, what's the likelihood of earning between 0% and 20% for Crocs? I would have to tell you what range, or you would have to know what range you're interested in. Now, for Crocs, both 0 and 20% fall to the left of Crocs's mean of 22.88. That's important to know. But I need to find the z-score. To do that, I need to take the desired number, and there are two desired numbers for this problem. There's 0, oops, there's 20, and there's 0. So I'm going to actually have to solve for two z-scores. I'll do the 20 first. So take the desired number, which is 20, subtract the mean, which is 22.88, and divide by the standard deviation, which is 71.49. Get this z-score, and I'm just going to crunch this off to the side. I'm running PowerPoint as a show, and if I try to pull up the calculator, it's going to mess up all my ink that I've drawn on the screen. So I'm going 20 minus 22.88 and dividing that by 71.49. That gives me a pretty low z-score, minus 0.04. Then I take this z-score and I pop over to a z-table, which I have open right here. And I go to, even though it's a negative 0.04, I ignore the minus sign right now. I'll deal with the minus sign in a second. So I go to 0.0 and across to 0.04, and I find 1.6% is what that means. I'm looking right here. Hopefully y'all can see my cursor moving. So 1.6%. I don't know how to get back to my slideshow. Yeah, I can see all the weird things I've got open. So 1.6%, that is actually Starting from the mean to the 20, because that's the desired number we calculated the z-score for, the 1.6% is this area. And I'm going to go ahead and spend all that time shading it in. So I know 1.6% of Crocs's returns will fall in this orange shaded area. That happens to not be the area that I want, but I need this percentage to find the area that I do want. To find the area that I do want, I'm going to change colors again. I'm going to solve for the z-score of my second desired number, which was 0. So I'm going to go 0 minus 22.88. That's the mean. Divide by the standard deviation of 71.49. I get another negative z-score. This time it's a negative 0.32. So I will pop over to my z-table and look up that z-score. So I go to the 0.3 and across to the O2, and I find 12.55. That is from the mean, this blue dotted line, all the way over to the desired number that I was looking at. That is this range, and I've forgotten what that was. 0.32, 12.55%. I better write that down. So what that means is the area under, let's see if I can, well, this area that I'm shading in purple, and I'm not doing a great job of it, this area in purple is 12.55%. I'm just going to kind of cross. Oops, I didn't mean to start that high because it ends right here. So I should start right there. So the area that I'm cross hatching in purple is 12.55%. And I'm going to go ahead and finish it just to be absolutely sure y'all get what section I'm talking about. So the purple is 12.55%. Well, I only want the blue portion of this purple section because that's from 0 to 20. If I did the entire purple section, that's from 0 to 22.88 Crocs's mean. And I don't want to go that far to 22.88. I want to stop at 20. Well, I know that the purple section is 12.55%, and I know that the orange section is 1.6%. So if I just subtract the 1.6% from the 12.55%, that answer is going to tell me the blue, light blue shaded area. So hopefully I did my math right. That looks good. So the likelihood of Crocs earning from 0% to 20% is 10.95%. Now I want to repeat this process with McDonald's, and I see my graph isn't showing up exactly the way I needed it, so I needed to edit this a little bit to bring everything on the screen. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so here's the green curve represents McDonald's. And again, I want the blue shaded area that falls under the green curve. And I'm not going to draw it again, but it was what I had drawn in purple when I first started this lecture. It goes all the way up to here. It includes that little point. It comes down, follows this straight line, and goes along the curved part of that green curve. And then goes straight again, follows this blue line. It is It's just sad that I can't draw a straight line. But this is the whole area under the green curve that is shaded light blue. That's the portion that I would that's the portion that's going to fall from 0% to 20% for McDonald's. But there's something interesting about McDonald's, and I really wish we could zoom in a little bit. And there's no way I can actually make this look a little better. But if you look very, very closely, a little bit to the left of this rightmost blue line, you're going to see a very light green dotted line. That light green dotted line is the mean return for McDonald's, 15.28%. That's important. This time with Crocs's mean was actually completely to the right of the rightmost number that I wanted to know, which was 20%. But with McDonald's mean actually falls in the middle of not in the middle, but it falls inside the blue shaded area. That changes my approach to find the likelihood of earning the return from 0 to 20% for McDonald's compared to Crocs, because the mean for McDonald's is inside the blue shaded area. The mean for Crocs was outside of it, and specifically to the right of it. What I'm going to do is hopefully change this to a light green. I just want to highlight this dotted line so y'all can see it a little better. And it actually goes all the way up to the top, all the way up to here. I'm just not going to draw it that whole thing. This green represents McDonald's mean of 15.28. Here's 0, and I'm going to use orange again. I think that's what I used earlier today. Here's, it's tough to draw, but here's 20%. This little section, this point right here. So, working with z-scores, I still have two desired numbers that I'm interested in knowing the range between. The desired numbers are 0% and 20%. I'll start with 0 first. I've got to find my z-score for 0, so I go 0, I subtract McDonald's mean of 15.28, and I divide by McDonald's standard deviation of 1432, and I get 1.07. Negative. What that 1.07 negative means is that 0 falls 1.07 standard deviations to the left of McDonald's mean. So I'm now going to go to the Z table and look up 1.07, go down to 1.0 and across to 0.07, and I find 35.77%. I'm just double checking that because I do not want to use the wrong number. All right. That is, and it just takes me a long time to draw all this. That is the orange hatched area that I'm doing right now, and I'm stopping it even though I didn't draw the green dashed line in this purple shaded area all the way up to the top. It's right here. That's that actual green dash line. It doesn't extend all the way to the right of the blue shaded area. And just pretend that I keep hashing this all the way up to the top. Anyway, the orange shaded area is that 35.77%. But that's not all of the blue shaded area. There's a little bit more to the right of McDonald's mean. So I need to figure that part out. And I'll do that in a, I don't know, a red, I guess. There's still this tiny little section. It's a small sliver, but it extends pretty far up up. So it's going to be this whole little section from where the green dash line was all the way to the right of the blue shaded area. And I'm not going to keep shading it, but it would be this whole section all the way up to the top. So I need to find that part. To find that, that relates to the 20% desired return. So I'm going to go 20 minus the mean of 1528. Divide that by the standard deviation of 1432. And I get 0.33. And it's positive this time. Now I can go to the Z table and look at 0.33. So zero point 0.3 and across to 0.3. So I find 12.93%. Double checking that. That is the portion of the curve that is this red shaded area. I'll just put that here. So it was 1255. So now if I sum the 1255 and the 3577, that's supposed to be under. It looks like I scratched out the 1255, but I'm not. I'm adding it, so I'm just going to put sum equal. So that's 12, 13, 8. Hopefully I did all my math right. 48.32% is the portion of McDonald's green curve that falls within this blue shaded area. And you can see it's much, much higher than Crocs's was, which I think was about 11%, 10.5%.